Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Carvalho, and with me is my guest at this time, Congressman Jim Langevin. Thank you for being here today. And
Good to be with you.
my first question is, what is it that made you want to get into politics and be a politician?
Well, from a very early age, going back to the time I was in scouting, I enjoyed public service and I understood how important public service is to the community. And I started out both as a Boy Scout and then later an Explorer Scout and got involved in the Police Cadet program. And thought I was well on my way to a career in law enforcement. And unfortunately, when I had my accident, when I was in the police locker room, was accidentally shot and paralyzed when a police officer's gun accidentally went off. That ended my career of going into law enforcement the way that I hoped. But it didn't end my love of public service. I was very grateful, of course, for the amazing amount of support from the community and that rallied behind me and my family at a time when I needed it the most, one of the most difficult times in my life. And I said that if there's ever something that I could do to give back, to make a difference, and that I would want to do that. And one thing led to another, and I started getting more and more interested in government, in politics. And at one point, someone had suggested that I might think of being involved in elective office, and had the opportunity to run for the Constitutional Convention back in 1985. And I was elected there, and I was part of the effort to help redraft the state's constitution. It was something that not only did I find something that where I felt I was giving something back, but I also really enjoyed the whole experience. And one thing led to another, and I ran for office a couple of years later as a state rep. I was still in college at the time, actually. The rest is kind of history. I've been involved in government public service for most of my adult life now.
Now, before you were U.S. Congressman, you were the Secretary of State for the state of Rhode Island. What was some of your usual daily duties as a secretary?
Well, the two major focuses of my administration at the time when I was Secretary of State to open up access to public information, public records. And so while I was there, the internet was just bursting onto the scene. And I had to learn about what the internet really was and how it worked. And it was a great tool to give a broader audience access to public information without having to actually go to the State House, for example, to get copies of bills or meeting notices. We put all that online and put it at the public's fingertips. And so I was very proud of our public information efforts as when I was Secretary of State, and I say opened up the doors of government and returned government to its rightful owners, the people of Rhode Island. And the second thing that I was very focused on was election reform and improving our election system so that we had the best equipment, so that when people went to the polls, they could vote easily and quickly, and we got an accurate vote count. So we used to have the oldest voting machines in the country. They're about 50 years old, these old level voting machines, and we got rid of those, and we got this new optical scan equipment, and we still use a form of that technology today. It's the best of the old and the new. An optical scan, it's a paper ballot with an optical scan reader, and it made a real difference in elections in the state. And now, pretty much, the standard now is to have optical scan with the paper ballot, so you have the ballot itself as the audit trail. It's a great technology, and I'm proud that we still use a form of that here in Rhode Island.
Now,
and I, by the way, I want to give great credit to the Secretary of State, Nellie Gouveia. She just recently replaced the machines that I was able to purchase when I was Secretary of State, and she got new, modern, updated optical scan equipment. So same technology, but moving in the same direction. So it's very good.
Now, last week you introduced a bill to amend the Homeland Security Act of 2002. What I wanted to ask you is if you could go into a bit more detail about that bill and if you think it will pass in Congress.
So I've introduced a couple of bills. So which one is this specifically now?
The one I was on the Congress website, and it said you were amending the Homeland Security Act, the one I found.
Okay. So I know that we're doing a lot on cybersecurity, and so it probably was in reference to into that bill. So we have one of the biggest challenges that we face in the country right now, both the national and economic security challenge of the 21st century is cybersecurity. So I'm looking for ways always to strengthen our cybersecurity posture, to make sure that American people are safe, that the country is safe. But it's a real challenge. It's going to be the difficulty and the challenge is going to be with us for quite some time.
And what else do you think we'll be able to take with the help of the U.S. government to be able to do this?
So part of it, I think, is a public awareness campaign, and I really would like to see us do more in terms of reminding people to do things like change their passwords, have difficult passwords to guess rather. Also to make sure that people are updating the security patches. Do good cyber hygiene, because most of these vulnerabilities can be closed, and we can protect ourselves. You just do the basics and practicing good cyber hygiene. Beyond that, though, both the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Defense are going to have to work harder and do more to protect the country in cyberspace, especially when it comes to protecting critical infrastructure like our electric grid and our telecommunications system, our banking system. Well, those are the areas where the most damage can be done, but yet they don't have the real responsibility or control to protect the private sector because it's in private hands. So we have to have a stronger public-private partnership going forward.
My next question is, what are your thoughts on everything that's been escalating with the problems with the president and Stormy Daniels and the payments? And what do you think this has any a bad reflection on our country to other countries when they see this?
Well, there's a number of scandals or issues going on with the president right now, and you've named a couple of them. Look, that's going to be in the hands of the court system and the court of public opinion, of course, and then Robert Mueller is conducting his investigation on the potential involvement of the Russians in the Trump campaign and the transition. So I say, let's leave that in the hands of the courts and also in the hands of Director Mueller as he's doing his work, and those processes handle it. And so ultimately, President Trump's going to have to answer for his own behavior to the American people or to the court system. But my focus right now is making sure that I'm doing my job as a congressman, focusing on how do we help make Rhode Island better, and what do we need to do to grow a stronger middle class and create jobs here in the country, and not only jobs but good paying jobs. So going forward, looking at how do we provide a better job opportunities, higher wages, and a better future for the American people, and that's something that is important to my constituents here in Rhode Island. That's what I'm focused on as a congressman, not only here for Rhode Island but for the country as well.
Now, with you mentioned Robert Mueller's investigation. I wonder if I can ask your thoughts on something else. With a few days ago, broke with Vice President Mike Pence. He said that Robert Mueller should wrap up his investigation. I'd like to know if I can get your thoughts on that.
Well, look, I want the investigation to be concluded when Director Mueller has done everything that he needs to do to get to the truth, to understand primarily what involvement the Trump campaign had, if any, with the Russians and through the transition or in the administration. Look, the whole thing, most of what I'm concerned about is that Russia clearly tried to interfere with our elections, both the probing or trying to undermine confidence in the election systems itself, but also trying to influence the outcome of the campaign through the social media campaign that it was involved with. And it's basically a fundamental attack on the cornerstone of our democracy, our election system. It's not a Democratic or Republican issue. It's an American issue. We should all be concerned about that. And we need to do everything possible, first of all, to understand what happened, how widespread it was, and then what we can do to better protect ourselves. The other thing that I think that we need to do is we need to send a strong message to Russia, or to any power, that any outside entity that try to interfere in our elections is going to be met with harsh penalties and a strong response. And I can tell you that I don't think our response has been strong enough. And so I think that we should have strong sanctions against the Russians, and we also need to know how deep this went and the degree to which, again, was there any collusion or involvement with the Russians and the Trump campaign or the Trump transition team or the administration, quite frankly. So I want the director to do his job. Certainly, we all want this to come to the conclusion as soon as it's possible. But I want the job to be done thoroughly, to be done right, without political interference. It's just let the facts speak for themselves.
Now, news broke out today that there was an attack. Israeli troops, forces took down many Palestinians and wounded over 900 today. What are your thoughts on this, and what do you think the U.S., if the U.S. should have any involvement in this, if we should involve ourselves to protect the Palestinians, what should we do?
Well, it's always difficult anytime innocent life is civilian life is taken. I don't know the circumstances yet of everything you've outlined, and I haven't been briefed on it just yet. I know that I heard some news reports about it, but don't know the facts. I do know that obviously with what's going on with the opening up the new embassy in Jerusalem has caused unrest in the Palestinian community area. I hope that calm prevails and that we can, at some point in the near future, get back to the issue of trying to have a negotiated settlement between Israel and the Palestinians so that we have a two-state solution and the two sides can live peacefully side by side. But both sides have to want peace, and but both sides, we should all do everything we can to prevent loss of life wherever possible. It's obviously this Middle East, and especially the tensions between Israel and Palestine, is always there's always a lot of pressure and tension in that region. Israel has a right to defend itself, and it's a free and sovereign nation. It's a best friend in the Middle East. I want only the best for Israel, of course, but I also want the Palestinians, likewise, both Israel and the Palestinians, to be able to live peacefully side by side.
Now, you do work at a U.S. Congressman, but there has been an issue that has affected a lot of people in the state of Rhode Island that I'd like to get your thoughts on. One of the biggest issues here for a while has been UHIP, and I'd like to know if I can get your thoughts on the situation with UHIP and what you think should have been done differently from the start when the program began.
Well, it's obviously primarily a state issue, of course, and they're trying to work out that the problems and get the problems with the computer system fixed. But I not having been immersed in the details of why it didn't work, it's unfortunate that it may have rolled out too soon without proper vetting and making sure that it was actually ready to run. But I know everything is a great effort to try to fix the problems. The most important thing is I want people to be able to get what they need when they need it. If someone is depending on food stamps to feed their family, the kids especially, and you need to fix the problem so that people get what they need as soon as they can.
Now, you've been a Democrat for a while, correct?
All my life, that's right.
Now, the midterms are coming up, and all the Congress seats are up, and many Senate seats. I want to know, how do you think the Democrats will fare in this midterm election, and do you think they'll be able to take over any of either house?
Well, we're in a government office, so I'm not going to get into politics right now. So why don't we have to leave that question for another time?
Okay. Well, that's all the questions I have. I think we made perfect timing, right? 15 minutes.
The only thing I will say is I hope people are registered to vote, and I hope they go to the polls on election day and they cast their ballot for who they believe in the most. It's the democratic process, and it's an important time in the country's history, and we need people to be actively participating and to be out there voting.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Congressman Langevin.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.